trash like that, that, you know, somehow freedom and free speech is caused the Holocaust. Yes, that is going to piss me off, and it should piss you off too. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sigil, and welcome to the big fight against the modern left and their socialist regime. It's been a remarkable week in Western politics here. And if you haven't heard, J.D. Vance went to the Munich Security Conference, and he basically called out the EU for, and EU-specific EU countries, including Germany, for becoming a totalitarian regime. If you haven't heard, just I think it was the day before yesterday, 50 simultaneous hate speech raids took place. So J.D. Vance went and called him out on it. And the thing that's happening right now, the important thing, this video is kind of boring, but the important thing that they're trying to do here, we can't let them pull this off, what they're trying to do here. They're trying to paint Trump and the right and populism as some evil word now. And this is something that we just can't allow them to pull off, because it's not true. They are the radicals and they know it. So they're trying to paint everybody else as radical extremists, when it's really them who would like to see America become full communist.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
It's so funny. He turned out to be 100% correct. Germany is now 100% dependent on Russian oil, just like he said. It's sad, man, to watch these little socialist leaders think that they know what they're doing.
No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting for political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration.
So that was J.D. Vance and his epic speech. It's being called one of the best speeches of like the year. People are saying it's going to be talked about in history books, and it supposedly is really, really good speech. But he went on to basically call him out for censorship, for essentially running from their voters, for accusing everybody of being far-right extremist if they don't align with their socialist policies. So let's check out how they react. So this is how the first lady, first grandma of Germany reacted to J.D. Vance's speech.
So let us stick to these values. Let us not reinvent them, but focus on strengthening their consistent application. Let me conclude, and this becomes difficult.
Really reject any idea of cooperation between parties, other parties, and these extreme right parties.
There it is, the extreme right parties. Donald Trump is an extreme right party. This is what you need to understand. Like, this is what we can't allow them to do. Donald Trump is a regular Republican. He's not far right by any means necessary. He is more left, actually, than most conservatives would want him to be. Like, these people are out of their minds. But you need to understand, to a socialist dictatorship, everybody is far right.
I think there is a strong consensus between all relevant parties in Germany that they won't do so. I hope this will last and continue. But it is absolutely sure and necessary to say it is not others to give us the advice to cooperate with these parties, which we are not working with for good reasons, especially when looking to the history of our country. Deshalb werden wir es nicht akzeptieren, wenn Außenstehende zugunsten dieser Partei in unsere Demokratie, in unsere Wahlen und in die demokratische Meinungsbildung eingreifen. Das gehört sich nicht, erst recht nicht unter Freunden und Verbündeten. Das weisen wir entschieden zurück. Wie es mit unserer Demokratie weitergeht, das entscheiden wir selbst.
And they're even going as far now to try to paint Hitler as being far right. This has been a debate that's been going on since Hitler existed, whether Hitler was far left or whether he was far right. And obviously the reality is he was clearly far left. The name of his party was the National Socialist Workers' Party. Now, you're not going to name yourself socialist anything unless you're socialist, which is left. But now they're going as far to try to paint Hitler as far right so that they can bunch him in with Donald Trump somehow to try to paint their own party as being grounded and normal, which everyone knows that they are a socialist dictatorship masquerading as a democracy. So, we can't allow this to take place. We can't allow them to call people like me, who was ex-liberals, freedom lovers, far-right extremists. We can't allow them to get this off. It's absolutely insane. And it's really like the last act of a desperate man for them to try to pull this off, to try to not look so crazy. But it's already too late. It's over. They have been exposed, and there's no coming back from this ever. So anyway, let's continue here. Yeah, they're not working with for good reason. Yeah, the good reason is we know your dumbass is a straight socialist regime. We know that you want communism, and I see why you don't want to work with Donald Trump, because he knows, and JD Vance just called your asses out on it. But Germany's response is, if we want communism, it's up for us to decide if we want communism and nobody else.
Vice President Vance left people very surprised by his speech because it wasn't on foreign policy or security policy, although he framed it that way. He spoke of domestic developments and democracy in Europe and in particular in Germany. The expectations were that he, as the Vice President of the United States, he would comment on the major issue that's on the table here in Munich, and that is the future of Ukraine and the way the US positions itself towards Russia. And the fact that he didn't mention that may be an expression of the problem that the US administration seems to be facing.
Not the problem that you guys are drifting to a totalitarian regime. Not the fact that you got people locked up in jail for speech right now. That's it, but it's somehow it's a reflection of the problems America's going through right now.
And that is, there's no clear and consistent line.
It's like, are you crazy? The line couldn't have been more consistent. He said, look, you guys are drifting to a place of totalitarianism. You are censoring free speech. You are running from your own voters. Like, what do you mean he didn't he drew the line as clear as he possibly can. But this lady is trying to obfuscate your attention to something completely irrelevant. Like, and then she says, oh, well, maybe this is just a part of the problems America is facing right now.
They
had to do a real weird random cut so that they can tell her, hey, make sure you mention some stuff about right-wing extremism so that we can, have some stuff to say about the Trump organization.
And secondly, he showed a deep ideological rift to Europe. He said that democracy was under threat in Europe and tried, in my view, to redefine the principles of democracy.
That's right. Yep. JD Vance calls out your totalitarianism. He calls out your socialist tactics, your socialist economy. He calls out the fact that your economy's crumbling. Your citizens hate you. JD Vance tried to redefine the values of democracy by calling you out for not supporting free speech anymore and the values of democracy.
But in a way that is definitely not the European values consensus. So what we saw was a demonstration of a representative of a US government which is right-wing populist and itself undermining democracy at home.
How is populism undermining democracy at home? What is populism? For those of you who don't know, populism is essentially doing what your citizens elected you to do. That's populism. Yet they're going to try for the next weeks to paint this populism as some horrible word, some word that you should associate with Hitler when you hear it.
And trying to convey that this is happening in Europe as well. So he spoke about freedom of speech, and what he meant was fighting back Russian disinformation. And
he spoke about free speech, but what he actually meant was fighting Russian disinformation. No, you dumb hoe. He actually meant free speech. Like, what? That's how dumb and brainwashed their base is now. Anybody that's still on the left is like hard left radicals. And this just proves it. He didn't mention Russian disinformation at all. He mentioned you guys using words like, and he even said Soviet words like misinformation and disinformation to censor your own voters.
These ways of turning around narratives, I think, is very dangerous, and which explains why so many very, very prominent politicians very strongly pushed back. The German defense minister, the German chancellor, they all spoke up against the US government, which had to happen, was very necessary, but at the same time is also quite rare to see at a public conference between allies. But the reason was the very strong provocation by J.D. Vance, and I don't think it was a coincidence.
Basically, from now on, if you see expert says in front of a name of something, you can basically just turn around everything they say to mean the opposite.
Brayton made the statement in the French television channel RMC Story, speaking about the upcoming national elections in Germany and the expectation that the right-wing populist Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, would perform well. He said that we did it in Romania, and we will obviously do it in Germany if necessary, referring to the overturning of elections.
It gets worse with Margaret Brennan here, who actually claims that free speech was the cause of the Holocaust. Yes, this woman has no more than a second grade education, apparently, because I don't know how you can be so damn deranged and retarded and ignorant about history to actually say something like that. But I know what it is. Their goal is to try to associate Trump and populism with Hitler somehow, even though Hitler was a socialist. Listen, Margaret, just because you kill all the other communists before your communist regime takes total power doesn't make you right-wing. That is the only warning Trump is going to give you guys. I guarantee it. That was your warning right there. You fall back from your dumbass socialist ways and you come back to a capitalist country, or we are done with you. That was J.D. Vance's speech, essentially. And you see what they're choosing. They're choosing to try to paint J.D. Vance and Trump as the right-wing extremist, and we're just morally responsible and normal.
Accomplish other than irritating our allies?
Well, why would our allies or anybody be irritated by free speech and by someone giving their opinion? We are, after all, democracies. The Munich Security Conference is largely a conference of democracies in which one of the things that we cherish and value is the ability to speak freely and provide your opinions. And so I think if anyone's angry about his word, they don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point. I thought it was actually a pretty historic speech, whether you agree with him or not. I think the valid points he's making to Europe is we are concerned that the true values that we share, The values that bind us together with Europe are things like free speech and democracy and our shared history in winning 2 world wars and defeating Soviet communism and the like. These are the values that we shared in common. And in that Cold War, we fought against things like censorship and oppression and so forth. And when you see backsliding, and you raise that, that's a very valid concern. We can't tell them how to run their countries. He simply expressed in a speech his view of it, which a lot of people frankly share.
What do you mean? Like, we called them out for being a fucking socialist. They're locking people up for memes. Police are breaking people's door down for disagreeing with their radical left-wing regime. And that's the question you ask. Why would J.D. Vance do this unless it's just going to irritate our allies? We give 0 fucks whether they're irritated. We care about the citizens over there suffering in Germany right now under this fucking dictatorship.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
That, free speech was actually weaponized. And it's... I don't even know what to say. It's so damn dumb that I just don't get how a person can be so retarded. And I'm sorry to use that word, but I don't know. Like, I literally want you to think like actual brain doesn't work type of stupid when like coming out of her mouth right there. It's unbelievable how a person could really think that. Yeah, free speech caused the Holocaust, caused Germany. Free speech was weaponized to kill all the Jews. I just don't get it, man. But the 50 years of Marxist subversion in our schools, I guess this is what you get. Look, I would just like to say, first of all, that I will probably get a little bit mad. I will probably curse in this video because, it bothers me that these media outlets have been allowed for years now, since 2016, since the day fucking Trump decided to run for office. They've been allowed to spew this nonstop trash, deliberately radicalizing the American people with lies. So yes, it does bother me to hear CNN, a mainstream news outlet, come on TV and mislead people by saying the Holocaust was caused by free speech. Yes, that is going to piss me off a little bit. You know why? There's even a more personal reason why. Me and my dad get along great until we talk about politics. As soon as we talk, this shit is dividing families with these lies. And you know what it is? It's not that, it's the fact that he repeats shit from these propaganda outlets that tells him they spew it as if it's fact. I know it's false because I've looked into it and know the truth, but he's coming at me with shit that he thinks is facts that is total lies. So they're deliberately misleading dividing families, radicalizing the country, trash like that somehow freedom and free speech caused the Holocaust. Yes, that is going to piss me off, and it should piss you off too. And it's people like me and you that is going to stop this shit from happening. We cannot allow them to paint the good guys as the radicals any longer. That shit is over. The progressive regime, the left-wing radical progressive regime, cannot keep painting themselves that they do not have the moral high ground anymore. So we cannot allow them to try to say freedom causes this and J.D. Vance and Trump are right-wing radicals when really they're the radicals. They're the fascists. They're the ones lying to your face all day, every day in the media, making shit up, outright making shit up about Trump and the right and Republicans, and it's nonstop, man. Even in the propaganda in the movies and shit. I see it in movies from 50 years ago. Black and white movies have this type of propaganda in it. And we can't allow this to happen. I'm gone, you guys. Thanks.